outset, let me thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this important discourse on clinical research. The academic leadership of the Symbiosis International University, distinguished faculty members, students who have joined this discourse today, illustrious faculty who participated and deliberated, and I was listening quietly, and it's so enriching to listen to all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, my pleasure to deliberate on clinical research from the lens of a public health perspective. And what I'm going to do is next 15 minutes or so, try to explain you to connect clinical research with public health and how it is relevant in that context. Let me begin with this first slide where I would like to put a premise related to a clinical research that for today's deliberation, I would look at clinical research as any health-related research carried out in clinical setting. And that translates to saying that clinical research is not just synonymous to clinical trials. There's a very significant proportion of research beyond clinical trials that is a part of clinical research. And the third important premise is that clinical research is integral part, and I would like to mention it's a continuity of spectrum of the health research. And so at times, it is very difficult to distinguish and to have different watertight compartments when you talk about other aspects of the health research. With these premise, I would like to begin this deliberation. And let me begin in telling you that when you talk about health research, it has multiple domains. And you can club, like I put it into boxes here. The first three boxes, basic sciences research, even animal research and laboratory research together, which also actually, in a continuity of spectrum leads to a clinical research. So clinical research is one aspect and one domain, but there are other domains also which are critical and important and relevant. Then move on to the public health research. But when I say public health research, sometimes people also differentiate as like implementation research, social behavioral sciences research. When you talk about in the context of public health programs, then it becomes a programmatic research, like focusing on evaluation research. And then finally, a translational research, at times even a multidisciplinary research also. And then research on methods also. So these are the variety of the domains when you talk about clinical research context. But one is to realize that you cannot talk of clinical research in isolation. They're so interrelated to each other. And they are not the watertight compartments that we all experience. We all understand that the basic research actually contributes to undertaking clinical research and subsequently contributes to the public health research. And on the other hand, the look that I have presented is that we actually invent, because research is all about discoveries. Research is all about inventions. We actually, invent something, and then we wanted to test that, and for that we take the help of clinical research, and then we need to further move forward to see that it is implemented at the population level. So the implementation research, so the invention leading into testing that research and resulting into implementation is important. And why I'm presenting this particular slide is to demonstrate you that how clinical research is absolutely relevant in the context of public health research. Because any research is, for that matter, a systematic investigation in a very specified area that we talked about earlier. The faculty and the invited guest also talked about this, which creates the facts, where we would expect that it will bring change in either clinical practice or programs or public health. But everything is directed towards the betterment of the humanity. And therefore, for any research, it should be relevant in the context of how it actually contributes to enhancing human health. And from that perspective, also actually clinical research is very much connected to the public health and public health research. Let me take COVID-19 as an example and how for confronting COVID-19 pandemic, we need to engage in variety of the research. For example, the role of the basic scientist that we all understand, even initially in identification of the virus and then subsequently characterization of this virus. And now we are looking at a variety of the mutants and variants, and genomic analysis is being done by the basic scientist. But of course, the diagnostics, you would remember that newer diagnostic tools and techniques being used, like RT-PCR tests have come, then antigen tests are there, and then variety of other tests are also available. We are looking at accurate, affordable, biotechnology role is there in diagnosis. Medications, and Dr. Ganga Khedkar and then others also spoke, repurposed medications, new drugs, and we need to create and then see when these, we are confronted with this disease and this COVID-19. We had initially like, hydroxychloroquine and then even ivermectin and other drugs were being tried. They were all repurposed medications and subsequently even the plasma therapy also. And then we realized that they have very limited role to play. So the science is basically an evolution. It's a new knowledge that is being created. And we have to see that how quickly we bring that new knowledge into a clinical practice. And therefore the evidence that we generate through a research needs to be immediately disseminated. It's synthesized at times also, because a couple of clinical trials may tell you something works and something does not work, but immediately need to be looked at from a broader perspective and see that how do we break it into a clinical practice and prevention strategies. From the epidemiological and public health perspective, for that matter, like outbreak investigations, understanding the trends, the sero surveillance telling us about the past and present infections, the predictors of mortality, vaccine development and testing, and even the health-seeking behavior for that matter. Why somebody is wearing mask and somebody is not wearing mask. It's important to have a holistic approach for the prevention and control of the disease. So you see that you cannot only look at, if you wanted to really contain this pandemic, only clinical research. Everything is so connected that you need to take a much more broader view in that context. And therefore, I would like to mention here that science, if sterile, if it lacks the social relevance and social purpose, and policies would crumble on clay feet if they are not placed on the pedestal of valid science. Because we all recognize that research is merely a tool. What ultimately benefits to the society is the knowledge. And knowledge has two components: knowledge generation and knowledge translation. Knowledge generation is basically a research which gives you a thrills of discovery. But knowledge translation is more important, which gives you a satisfaction of purpose being fulfilled. And I was listening to Dr. Yajnik, who mentioned actually these days he is more keen to publish if it really making difference basically, or it really adds value to the knowledge, which is critical and important. And therefore, this iterative loop from the clinical research to public health tells us about we need to move the research evidence to the policies, and shaping those policies would help us to create the public health programs, which finally basically finally delivers the public health interventions which are important and relevant. We also need to understand in that context what Robert Frost has said to us, who has been one of the greatest American poets that we all know, that poetry is what is lost in translation. The same story is with the research that we actually undertake. We need to see that how it gets translated into a clinical and public health practice and programs. We need to ask questions to ourselves that whether much of the output that we have created out of the clinical research is also getting lost in translation. And if it is so, then why is it so and what can be done? Again, bridging the gap between clinical research and public health is important. When we undertake clinical research projects, we need to look at from a lens of optimizing performance, like developing strategies to derive the maximum benefits from this. And the question that needs to be answered at that, who are going to be benefited? Who are the stakeholders? And people should be at the center of the beneficiaries of any clinical research activity that we would undertake. And what are those benefits? And how do we actually maximize those benefits and strategies which will benefit ultimately to the human health is important. And even from the scientific issues point of view, when you talk about research methods, when you deal with clinical research, what we use is that we use the tools and techniques of epidemiology in addressing clinical research questions. That also indicates basically, because we all know clinical epidemiology or the epidemiology is a tool of public health. So that we use in clinical research. The study design options, like from case series or maybe a single case to a case series to observational studies to clinical trials, these are all basically the options that are available to us. They come from the epidemiology and the public health point of view, which we use in clinical research, answering some questions. Even from the validity perspective also, because randomized controlled clinical trials are known to be internally valid. But what matters is basically the external validity, the generalizability of the research finding that we generate for clinical trials at the population level is also connects between the clinical research and public health. I wanted to mention about efficacy and effectiveness. What we get from clinical trials is the efficacy, but we need to see that how, when these, like vaccine trials for that matter, in a clinical setting would generate the efficacy of vaccine. But when these vaccines are rolled out at the population level, what we get are the estimates of protective effect as the effectiveness, because they are in real world being practiced and used. And so this again connects the clinical research with the public health. I would give a case study present in next maybe 5 minutes or so to tell you how the clinical research connects to the public health and how it bridges the gap between the clinical research and public health. This was related to the ferrous sucrose in pregnant anemic women in India, which we undertook an open label randomized controlled clinical trial. Some of the gynecologists who would have joined this program and obstetricians would realize that this ferrous sucrose was used in pregnant anemic women very rampantly for treatment of moderate to severe anemia. But there was no clinical, from the research point of view, evidence available. And then the government of India approached us and requested that if we could do and analyze this important issue, because this is being rampantly practiced without any clear evidence that was available to us. We all know that anemia is an important public health problem, and we have an anemia prophylaxis program for more than 4 decades or so. But we also know that 60% of our women, lactating and pregnant women, are either moderately or severe anemic, and therefore having consequences of anemia in terms of maternal, fetal, infant, and child outcomes. And it was also recognized that maternal deaths were quite significantly attributed to the iron deficiency anemia that we all know. And therefore, we have universal IFA supplementation program and deworming, and these are the interventions that severely anemic pregnant women would receive the daily high dose of iron plus folic acid for a few months or so, and then required an institutional management blood transfusion or so. But we recognize that there is a poor compliance of that, because of even supervised oral administration has not been able to raise the hemoglobin levels. If they have been very low at the level of 5 or 6 or 7 grams per deciliter, that was a challenge. And therefore, the majority of the women report late in pregnancy, and there was hardly time left for managing, and therefore there was a need for another effective strategy. And then this Cochrane review came in 2009, which also tells us that IV iron sucrose is effective, but there is uncertainty about its serious adverse events, such as thrombosis or so. And therefore, there was a need of a well-designed, large, randomized, controlled clinical trial to be conducted in the developing countries. And when this trial was planned, actually, we wanted to identify what could be the questions that probably we would answer in the context of public health. We said that it would create a definite evidence for benefiting the clinical outcomes, like, for example, higher public health impact then. It will also talk about the safety that would be established, the wider acceptability in that context. It will create the epidemiological data of pregnancy outcomes in terms of modern and moderate to severe anemia, where currently the data is lacking. And it will also throw light on dose and dosage, which can be standardized. So it would give evidence for creating guidelines which can be formulated. And this study was planned, and then we published several papers even before the study was initiated, like Journal of Obstetric and Gynecology Research. And then subsequently, we undertook the observational studies we put together, and we justified the need of this randomized controlled clinical trial, and the results were published in the Journal of Obstetric and Gynecology Research. The data was then, as I mentioned to you, that the government of India has approached to us ministry, and then WHO came forward for supporting this trial, and the protocol was published in the Journal of Obstetric and Gynecology of India. And then we undertook this particular study where we found that IV iron sucrose is a safer alternative for treatment of pregnant women with severe anemia, and it became a part of the program which was published a couple of years back in Lancet Global Health. And but we also wanted to look at from the economic evaluation of this whole activity, and therefore we did the economic evaluation of this IV iron sucrose as an intervention, and found that it's a cost effective compared to the oral iron folic acid in terms of clinical outcomes of severely anemic pregnant women, which was published in Health Policy and Planning. So these are very good journals which published this research. The point I'm making is that the need that came out from the program, that saying that we need evidence on that. Then we looked at observational studies, we looked at the systematic reviews, planned a randomized controlled clinical trial, generated the data, incorporated the economic evaluation perspective also, and then again fitting back into the program. So the program need, which actually has been there for undertaking this particular research, subsequently went into the program trade, and now it becomes a part of the program. Final couple of slides that I wanted to mention that, of course, one clinical trial at times may not be helpful, and therefore we need to realize that we should look at even the clinical research data. We all understand that clinical trials, randomized controlled clinical trials, are the gold standard. But we also need to look at how do we synthesize the data from multiple clinical trials together in terms of a meta-analysis, systematic reviews, because we need to recognize what Ian Chalmers has said to us, that the process of research synthesis is the application and practice of the principle that science is cumulative. It cannot be looked at from one angle or one aspect. It has to be looked on much more holistic purposes. And although it is widely agreed that science is cumulative, people have only recently begun to acknowledge that scientists have the responsibility of accumulate scientifically, and therefore meta-analysis and systematic reviews are important and relevant. We need to see that how do we translate this research that we do into an action, because that is more important, and that is what Dr. Yagnik is also mentioning. Therefore, creating, deciphering, and applying research evidence in public health decision making and creating health policies is critical. So we need to see that how do we bridge that gap between the clinical research into a public health action. And this is the final slide, which actually summarizes what I wanted to say when I have been requested to talk about clinical research from the perspective of public health. I believe science discovers, and when I say science discovers, it incorporates clinical research, technology develops, and public health delivers. Public health, therefore, is the bridge, and I would say it is the broadest bridge between the science and society. Thank you for this opportunity, and over to organizers.